Welcome to In Doubt Checkout with Dr. Nandini Munkur. After an exciting series of podcasts on autism, here we are back again with Dr. Nandini to understand more about sleep. As you all know, sleep is very essential for every human being. Sleep in children is much more important. I'm Manju Bhargavi, the director of Sanghamitra Early Learning and Sensory Integration Center, with Dr. Nandini Munkur over here, who has a decade of experience, more than 3 decades of experience in developmental pediatrics with us to help us understand more about sleep. Welcome, Doctor, to our podcast.
Thank you.
As we all know, sleep is a very essential part, and in children, moreover, sleep helps in their physical development and mental development too. And we also know that sleep is more to do with their cognitive development, moods, behaviors, and their learning too. So, Doctor, help us understand, why is sleep so important?
Thank you, Manju. You have enumerated a lot of causes, understanding of importance of sleep yourself. Besides this, let's go. Physical development, which is really the, say, height, develops during sleep. Do you know growth hormone is secreted during sleep? So it's so important that parents don't understand. And if you have a very prolonged period of sleep deprivation, the child can be stunted in the growth also. In height. Then we come down to, let's understand behavior. Mm-hmm. Maladaptive behavior, which is so common in young children. Mm-hmm. Parents often wonder, temper tantrums, crying, sleepiness, not performing in school. All these are related to sleep.
Okay.
And sleep is so essential for the child to concentrate in classes, build attention span. It's just that there are areas in the brain which even, there is an area called hippocampus, which builds memory.
Okay.
And that also happens during sleep. So it's very important for a child to have a good memory. Besides, of course, cognition. And so sleep is vital. And, you'll be surprised, not just human being. Every animal on this earth sleeps.
Yeah.
Just for information, there's a koala bear in Australia which sleeps for 22 hours and the rest of the time it eats. Yes. That's the only job it has to do. We have to do many other things besides eating and sleeping. So sleep is vital for us to function better with our brain. And of course, sleep, even a bird you'll see perched up on the tree, just having a wing. So sleep is very, very, even snakes sleep, reptiles sleep, So it's universal to have sleep to restore our physical as well as mental health. Especially the physical energy, the muscle relaxation, all this happens in sleep. So you can enumerate any system in the body and it just recovers on all the day trauma we cause for that particular part of the body during sleep.
Great.
The sleep is so vital.
Yes. So, Doctor, help me understand, how many hours do you think a child should sleep?
Now, this varies from infancy to the adults.
Okay.
Now, when you have an infant, a newborn baby, newborn babies sleep from 14 to 18 hours a day.
Great.
And the wake-up time is only 20 minutes to 40 minutes, and they'll go back to sleep again. They get up, they only wake up for either usually hunger, sometimes if they're uncomfortable or some sensory issue, go back to sleep. So they have wake up, sleep, of just 20 minutes or 40-minute cycle. So they sleep for 14 to 18 hours. Almost by about 4 months, this can come down by an hour or so, they sleep. Let's say as a child grows by about a year, it can be anywhere between 12 to 14 hours. And then, of course, the sleep pattern. As adult, we need at least 6 hours minimum, they say. But 8 hours is what they say if you're not sleep deprived. So, and continuous. I'm talking about as we grow up as children, say about after preschool, school age, adolescents and adults, we need a continuous sleep at night. What happens from newborn to as we grow up in children, another thing happens. See, the child does not have what is called as circadian rhythm. That is, we sleep at night and we work during the day. A newborn doesn't have this day-night concept. But as we grow, like 2 years, 3 plus, or even earlier, that this rhythm comes in. And so we tune our body, biological clock is such that we sleep during night and work during day. And how to set this clock, we'll talk about it as we go further. So that is called the circadian rhythm. And this has to be set for the child. So the sleep pattern varies. Okay. But you have to understand about 2 or plus, the child will sleep through the night. Usually. May take a night feed, but definitely if the child at preschool does not sleep comfortably and doesn't sleep through the night, we should be concerned. Another very interesting thing I read was infants, that is, children who are 3 months, 6 months, if they sleep less than 12 hours a day, they are likely to have a language or a cognition delay.
Oh.
Even as early as 2.5 years. So you see the value of sleep.
True. But doctor, help me understand, why do these younger children wake up so frequently? Even though if they sleep for quite a number of hours, they usually wake up frequently.
Yeah. See, the sleep is just not we go to sleep and it's continuous. There is something called the sleep cycle. There are 2 phases in this cycle. One is called the NREM and REM.
Okay.
REM is rapid eye movements and NREM is non-rapid eye movements.
Okay.
Now, in the adult, for example, we have a 90 minutes to 120 minutes cycle. So where there are 3 phases of the NREM cycle and 1 phase of the REM cycle. So it's like this. The first phase, as you go to sleep yourself, you are just about to sleep and you get a little drowsy, and then that's the first phase. Then N2 or N3 is what is called the deep sleep. Deep sleep is a time when your muscles are almost like paralyzed. You don't even know what happens in that sleep. It's I almost say it's almost like dying and getting up again. It's that. We just have no clue of what's happening. Then we come to call the REM sleep, which is the 4th phase. And that also lasts for about 20% of your sleep. And that is the dream phase, where you dream and you start getting up. So this cycle of 90 to 120 minutes in an adult and older children happens every cycle. We have about 4 to 5, 6 cycles of this.
Okay.
In children, there is no NREM, it's NREM little bit, NREM go back. So they haven't established this 3 phases, and so this very, very short duration. And as the child keeps growing, the REM sleep comes less and less and NREM keeps growing. That's why they get up very, very frequently and they have no clue of what's happening. They develop it over a period of time.
So it's not just they wake up for a feed. So it may be for many other things they wake up.
Usually an infant wakes up for feed or some sensory discomfort, or they want to change. That is the newborn baby.
Okay.
But by 4 months, they have established they start interacting with the adults or their parents, or so that phase lasts. During the waking time, they start having cooing, they start back and forth, we call it serve and receive part of the attachment start. So around 4-5 months. So the child starts keeping longer and longer time awake. So that depends on the wiring of the brain.
Okay.
The brain, when a newborn baby has hardly any synaptic connections. It's born full. It has all the neurons, which you and me also have. But they have to have connected to each other. It starts to happen after birth. And during this growth which happens, by 4 months the wiring is pretty good for the child to start having some social connections, and then they want to keep awake longer and longer.
So that happens with a full-term developed child.
Yeah.
But what about, we've heard preterm children having a lot of sleep issues. Why is this?
Okay. Now, preterm baby, the greatest disadvantage is when you're born preterm, you don't have the luxury of being in the mother's womb, where the movement of the amniotic fluid, the sound, the hissing sound of the the blood flow of the mother They have this continuous sound which is there, and they don't have that light which is blaring on them. So a newborn baby, when it's born, however good a neonatal services center may be, can never replace what happens in the womb. So the baby gets a lot of sensory stimulation, and that is very difficult for the child to adjust because they don't have that capacity. So they can get very overwhelmed with all this, and that's one thing. And then they even have a smaller capacity of feeding, and then they are put through so much of trauma. Of pain. They have so much, and all that builds up, so they can have a lot of sleep problem. So those children have to be nurtured much more for sleep in terms of looking after these sensory, bringing down the sensory stimulation in them. That's why premature babies are far more vulnerable to sleep problems than the natural.
So doctor, how do we know that a particular child is getting enough sleep? Is there a measure for it?
Oh, okay. The measure in terms of how we perform.
Okay.
A baby who has slept well is very enthusiastic, is running around, playing around, interacting, is able to, a child in school is able to focus. They don't fall asleep during daytime.
Okay.
They have energy. They're able to play. They're able to, that is the sign of a good sleep. There's no yardstick. And this yardstick of so many hours is only a general parameter. Some children require less sleep, some children require more sleep, some adults require less sleep, some adults require more sleep. This is not a yardstick, but you should be refreshed. That you should be able to concentrate, you should be able to study, you should be able to play, you should not feel drowsy during the sleep, and you should be able to concentrate, your attention span should be good, and you should be motivated to learn, and that's the yardstick for having a good sleep, a person who's had a good sleep.
So we see many children in our center with a lot of irritability, a lot of inattention. It's like their whole emotional well-being, we feel sometimes it's not in the right place. So can you help us understand what are the common causes of sleep problems, and does that really affect on their day-to-day life participation?
Okay. Now, if you're talking about typical children, they may be children with neurodiversity who will have their own problems of sleep. Like children with, if you're talking about autism spectrum disorders, they can have an inherent sleep problem.
Okay.
So that is a separate ball game by itself, where we really have to address that. For attention deficit they can also have sleep disorders. But on an average, when we say what are the common causes of sleep, I would call it sleep deprivation. Disorders are a kind of medical problems by which you don't sleep, like parasomnias and insomnias and night terror and sleepwalking. There are some conditions which are disorders which we really have to check it out with the doctor.
Okay.
But sleep deprivation, as we call it, that is really to do with building a good sleeping habit right from infancy. The parents have to follow these strategies so that the child gets to sleep well.
So you mean to say that sleep hygiene is extremely important?
Sleep hygiene is very important. It's not just the sleep hygiene. It's also how to set a good routine for a child.
Routine. At what age do you think that we can develop sleep? Is it at the age of 7, or can I start it very early?
Sleep routine?
Yes.
You should start it as early as possible. Let me tell you what we do to even 2 or 3 months old baby. The first thing is to get them familiar with the place you want to sleep. So when the child is even 2-3 months, or we say when the child is about to sleep drowsy, take them to the place where we're going to make them sleep. Okay, let's talk about a little more in the infants. A lot of other things we have to learn about sleep in infancy before I answer that question of yours. So that's important. So the child, this is called learning by association. Every time I'm drowsy, you take me to my bed and I sleep there. I get that even as a kid when I grow up, 1 or 2 years, I'll say, Amma, I want to sleep, and you will probably know where to sleep.
Yes.
You've learned that as a person.
Yes.
Second thing which we also have to understand about the infant is that you must also specify the sleeping pattern, for a child. Now, the place where the child sleeps, it's very important, something called the safe sleep. Safe sleep is, my child sleep in a safe area. That means the crib. The crib which I have, it should have a firm mattress. If it's very soft, the children may, there's something called the SID, the sleep death which occurs in sleep, in children. And that happens if the child is made to sleep on his stomach, for example. It can choke. So we put the child always on his back to sleep, and it should be on a firm mattress, more or less. It should be firm for the child, and prefer the child to sleep with his face up and not on the sides also.
Not on the sides too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are some very simple things many parents don't know also, especially if it's preterm, you've got to be all the more careful with this. The other thing which we have to also understand is the crib is very close to the parent. The child should be able to sleep separately if it's possible.
How early is that?
As early as you can. Now, you see, even in our own culture, which is the Indian culture, we used to put our babies to sleep in a hammock.
Yes.
The hammock is, they would make it out of the mother's sari, the cotton sari preferably, because it's a soft cloth and it is such a wonderful thing. And they would just wrap the baby and put the baby in that hammock. Well, a lot of neuroscience and evidence is also, when you would have done that hammock out of the mother's sari, there's an attachment bonding which develops, and the child feels very secure. We don't do all this anymore, and they would gently rock the hammock,
too.
And the mother would sing that lullaby, or the granny would sing for that baby. That is so soothing for the child. It's not just for sleep, it also builds another very strong, secure attachment, which is so vital for us to develop a personality as we grow up. Now we don't do these kind of things, and even cribs in India is a big thing. Every state makes such beautiful cribs. If you go to Rajasthan, you have the most colorful cribs, They crib, and it's wise if we can understand that if you put the baby to sleep separately, it's much better.
Okay.
Although co-sleeping with parents is culturally, we are very, very kind of tuned into that. There's nothing wrong in that. But I still feel that if you can keep your baby at one arm's length away from the mother, it would be a great thing, so that the child feels you're there. What is it you have to go? You say, I am there, don't worry. And that can be just done by patting the child and say, I'm around, so sleep well, and it gives confidence to the child that it feels secure. So sleeping is so important if it can sleep alone. And if not as a sleeping, but definitely I feel by 2.5 years, we must train our children to sleep separately. In our country, I think they sleep till 7, 8, 9, 10. It's not a great idea.
It's not a great idea.
Because adults require many other functions in life. The husband and wife require many other things. They should not have a child of 6, 7 or 8 years sleeping with them.
True.
That's and of course it's also necessary that, of course, some children may have little problem in sleep, so rocking, gentle movement, lullaby, singing, all these helps a child who is having difficulty to sleep, to help them to sleep.
Okay. So with all these preliminary things done to children, also some children end up with sleep disorders or sleep problems.
Okay.
Why is that?
There's something called fragmented sleep. Fragmented sleep is when the child keeps on getting up at night and go. Now this can be due to two factors. Either the child is sick, it can be medical problems. One of the most common problem in children is called the apneic sleep. That is, they have adenoids, or it's a growth by which it blocks the larynx. The child gets up with this sleep apnea and go. It's not a very good thing because you're depriving the brain of the oxygen. So adenoid operations are done just to correct sleep in children. That's one. The second thing is they can have medical problems, insomnia problems. They can have something called the restless leg syndrome. They have, these are all medical issues which you have to get it sorted out. But sleep fragmentation can also occur because of sleep deprivation.
Okay.
So what is the sleep hygiene which you're talking about? Is getting the child prepared to sleep. How does it start? It starts first with when the evening dawns. You said you're going towards night. So what we start to do is we start dimming the light. We start slowing down the loud noise from the house. The greatest detrimental thing is in our houses is the blaring television and a mobile. The child will keep saying, this blue light which emits from these is not good for sleep.
It reduces sleep.
So you have to make electronic things switch off. At least 1 hour before the child sleeps, by 9 o'clock. And there has to be what is called winding down or relaxation time, where the child is listening to soft music or playing by itself, not running around and all those boisterous game is not necessary. But the child plays, either with his toys or sitting down, so that the parents, and feeding has to happen say at least 2 hours before
2 hours before.
And the kind of food is also very important. If you give a very high carbs and kind of a food, then the child is going to have, not be able to sleep comfortably. So we need to give a kind of healthy diet to the child and then wind down and have this routine. What routine each house follows is its own. That can be bath, change of clothes, feeding, and then putting the baby to sleep. Of course, others can be, if the older child, you add brushing at night. Depending on the age, you set a routine.
Okay.
And that should be followed to the T. And then put the child. That's what is sleep hygiene all about.
Okay.
And you go to bed at a particular time. So this is very important to set this hygiene practices. And that varies from culture, home. There's no one fixed thing. It depends on what each household does. But at least have 4 or 5 tasks. And it should be done about half an hour to 1 hour before sleep. So the child says, oh, I'm going to sleep. Another very, very important thing to develop is reading.
Reading?
Reading before sleeping is very important.
Okay.
Read a book to the child. We just don't read. As early as 1 year, 10, you can start reading to the child. They understand very well.
Yes.
If you read to the child, it gives them a good sleep. And don't read very nice, relaxing stories, not monsters coming and this. And then they might get overwhelmed with that, So good reading habit, parents reading. It's also great bonding with the child, You must read and then say. And then the child said 2 stories, 3 stories. No, 1 story and that's enough. No more stories. So setting limits, following a day routine, building a sleep hygiene, all these are very important to get a good sleep for a child.
Doctor, I would like to share an incident. Like my niece is a 2-year-old child, 2.5-year-old child. So very recently they had both are working parents and they had to drop the child in a creche or a daycare center. So when they were dropping the child and coming back, the child cried a little bit since it was a new setup for the child. The child quite adjusted, but on the same day, the child had a very disturbed sleep. The child woke up, the child started crying, don't leave me, don't leave me. I really did not understand whether to quote it as a nightmare or a night terror. Could you help us understand what is the difference between these two?
This is a nightmare. Nightmare means the child is remembering this incident. And what's the difference between nightmare and night terror is nightmare occurs in the dream state, in that REM state where we are conscious of what's happening. So any trauma, any incidents they collect through the day, they can dream and they get scared and they can cry about it. And this usually happens the REM sleep is when the child is about to go to sleep or early in the morning, one of these times.
Okay.
When the REM sleep is there, nightmares occur. And child is pretty conscious of this. They can recollect these incidences, especially the older ones, So you have to soothe the child and comfort the child and get it back to sleep, Now, night terror is one of the sleep disorders which occurs in the NREM phase, when you're in deep sleep. And the child can yell, scream, kick, it's so distressing. The parents I don't know what to do because it can be really, that's why it's called a terror.
Okay.
But you'll be very surprised to know you have to do nothing about it.
Is it?
Because the child just cannot remember what happened in that night terror. It cannot recollect the next day.
It cannot recollect the next day.
But, however, if you feel that is really harming the parents or this thing, the therapy for that is to do cognitive therapy, or we called anticipatory waking up. What does anticipatory waking up means? 10 or 15 minutes before the night terror occurs, the parent should wake up the child.
Okay, so they need to monitor that time
so that he doesn't get into that terror state,
Okay.
And otherwise, of course, for older people, older children, even adults can have night terror, by the way. So it is cognitive behavioral therapy and a whole lot of other, and very, very rarely even medications we give for that
So as we have discussed all this while, I think parents play a major role in developing sleep hygiene and helping them to have a better sleep patterns.
I think the first thing parents have to understand the importance of sleep. In our country, why do they keep the children awake till 11:30? I have parents who come and tell me, I come so late from my office, I have to play with my child. I said, is that the only time you can find to play with your child? 11 o'clock at night. I said, okay, if that's the only thing you have to do, don't deprive the child of sleep. Play over the weekend. See, it's not what parents have to understand. I feel it's not a quantum of time they have to spend, the quality of time. It can be over the weekends. You can have all the joy and fun with your child and don't have to be at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night when the child needs to sleep. That's very important. The second very thing I find very difficult to understand is grandparents must have their TV on loudly, because they don't know what else to do, so they have to watch. The child has to sit and watch with them.
That's a common complaint that we have.
Big deal. The grandparents can watch in another room. I say, we are bringing up a whole next generation of, not because what we have done and the child should do that. You should see that they get their boundaries. We are the caretaker for them. We are the ones who say they cannot think for them so much. Especially young children don't even have the prefrontal cortex to do thinking. We have to monitor them. True. So you, as a caregiver, as a person who are in charge of the child, should know what you have to do with your child. Don't blame the child. He is crying. He is not doing well in school. He is irritable. He is fighting with the kid. He is not obeying. Who has led to all this? When the child was born, it doesn't say I'm going to have all these qualities in me. We create the environment, and the parents are crucial for a child development, and parents must have knowledge. You cannot say that I didn't know about it. Yes, there are millions of ways of knowing what you want to do, but I feel as parenting we need to learn responsibilities of how to be a good parent.
Yes.
One very interesting podcast I've heard, and one of the wonderful leading psychologists say that every job has a qualification. But parent you become without anything.
Without any qualification.
And what is your responsibility? You're breeding a whole nation, the next generation. So you don't have to have any responsibilities for that.
True, very true.
So please, I think parents should be knowledgeable, and they should understand the values and they put it into place, and you can't get away with this, that grandparents are watching so my child can't. And one of the best things they do is when they come to the clinic, see, the doctor is telling you this. What is doctor? I'm responsible. See, the doctor, this happens 9, 10, 11, 12. See, the doctor is telling you to do this.
Yeah, it happens even at school.
At your center also?
When we have to counsel parents as a whole during the intervention services, Oh my goodness. The common complaint will be there's father comes home late or the mother comes home late. Or the common complaint is grandparents want to see TV.
No, they can see. I say every adult can do what they have to do because they've lived through the childhood. But you find your space for it. The grandparents can have a separate room, and if it's not there, they see after the child is put to bed. But the child doesn't have to be there. True. That's one thing. And creating an ambience for sleep is also very important, by the way. Yes. You would be surprised your body temperature drops at least by a degree when you go to sleep. So your room should be a little cooler. And, if it's very hot, in very young infants, what parents also do is swaddle them and the child can't sleep. So you have to create an ambience for sleep also. Sleep deprivation when you do, and when you see many of them, that they will say you should be noiseless, yes. You should have comfortable temperature, the bed should be quite not so hard that the child can't sleep. And of course, in young infants and all who still have a sleep problem, I feel the best for a young infant is a mother's voice. And every mother is a Lata Mangeshkar to her kid. And True. Her voice is so soothing for the child that, and even I've just recently written a book, for the young mother. Even that shh noise which they make is enough to. It's like in mimicking a abdominal. As a baby is in the womb. That is important. Or they have something called white noise. White noise means you have a repetitive, like a rainfall, or not with thunder, like tick, 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 how the rain. So it should be very monotonous. Even a fan, grr, 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 which all this can be kind of help a child sleep.
I think India being culturally very strong, I think we don't have to rely on white noises. We have lovely lullabies for children, lovely songs to put them to sleep.
We should use it. We are giving up on all those traditions now, because parents don't have time to know what but the neuroscience says that bringing up a child in its own tradition with modern understanding neuroscience is far more valuable. So we should have these kind of, telling them, sing for your child, that is very important. And then create these sleep hygiene, create the ambience, create and set ground rules. Tell the children that this is it. Yes. I don't know why we are not able to do it.
I think it's a huge responsibility for parents to understand sleep, the importance of sleep, and also the effects of sleep that has on children. Okay, doctor. Even after following all these sleep hygienes practices, I have seen parents religiously practicing these with their children, but yet children are not able to develop good sleep. So is there any way that we can help them further?
Of course. These are all general guidelines we are talking about. Sleep is a big science by itself, by the way,
Okay.
You have sleep clinics. We even as doctors have a diploma course on how to sleep. It's not such a simple thing. They study sleep patterns. You can see all the REM, REM, NREM patterns in the sleep, and there's something called polysomnography, which they will monitor the whole night sleep, with the child, and they come to a conclusion what is wrong. You have to correct many things. Okay. This is just, we are trying to, I think today we were trying to convey that what should set a good sleeping pattern, because we found in our country that children sleep at 11:30, and parents don't know the value of sleep and how many hours they should sleep, what's a minimum, and how it transits from infant to the adult, and all those things.
True.
But if a parent finds that doing all these measures, the child has a sleep, they should go to sleep specialists.
Sleep specialists.
Yes, and for even children there are sleep specialists. Okay. And they really have to figure it out and sort it out.
Thank you so much, doctor, for helping us understand the importance of sleep. And I hope many of our parents who are watching this podcast have surely got more insights on how to develop sleep, how to make it more interesting, and how to make it more independent. And I hope you all give a lovely sleep pattern or a sleep hygiene to your children. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. I hope I've answered most of your questions.
Thank you, Doctor, for helping us understand a whole mystery about sleep and the sleep hygiene. I hope parents, to-be parents, and all the parents out here to understand more about sleep and the sleep hygiene that they have to bring in not only for their children, for themselves too. Thank you for listening to us and hope you send us your feedbacks and we'll be happy to answer all your queries. Thank you.